Before the sun rises over Australia, before heat shimmers above the red desert and mist coils through ancient rainforests, a scream splits the silence of the wild, fierce, defiant, alive. It is the voice of a continent forged by fire and drought, and carried on wings of emerald, crimson, and gold. In a land where rivers vanish, forests burn, and storms reshape the earth overnight, survival belongs only to the adaptable. These are not ordinary birds. They are aerial nomads of the outback, guardians of primeval rainforests, and lords of the eucalyptus sky. From ghostly parrots hidden in spinifex shadows to thunderous flocks that darken the desert horizon, this is the story of Australia's most amazing parrots, creatures of brilliance and resilience, fighting to endure in one of the harshest landscapes on Earth, as the greatest threat they have ever faced begins to rise. At first light, before the sun breaks the spine of the Great Dividing Range, the Australian bush holds its breath. A cool blue hush clings to the eucalyptus canopy, and the air is heavy with the scent of oil and dust, of sap and distant smoke, the perfume of a continent forged in fire. Then, from somewhere beyond the silvered treetops, a cry splits the dawn. It is not a gentle bird song, but a jagged proclamation. Ancient, defiant, unmistakable. A sulfur-crested cockatoo arcs into the sky like a shard of sunlight, wings wide, crest-flaring gold against the pale horizon. In moments, the silence shatters into a storm of white feathers and echoing calls as dozens more rise with it, their silhouettes cutting across the rising sun. These are the lords of the eucalyptus, intelligent, resilient, and unapologetically loud, parrots shaped by one of the harshest landscapes on Earth. Australia is a continent of extremes. Here, rain can vanish for months, and temperatures soar beyond 40 degrees Celsius. Lightning ignites the dry understory, and bushfires race across hills with terrifying speed, devouring forests in hours. Yet the eucalyptus trees endure, their bark shedding in ribbons, their seeds sealed tight until flame unlocks them. And where the eucalyptus survives, so too do the cockatoos. For tens of thousands of years, these parrots have ridden the cycles of drought and deluge, fire and regrowth, adapting not just to survive but to thrive in chaos. Their curved beaks are living tools, capable of cracking the toughest seed pods, tearing into bark for grubs, even manipulating branches with remarkable dexterity. Inside their skulls lies a brain built for problem-solving, memory, and social complexity. A cockatoo does not merely exist in its environment. It studies it, experiments with it, learns from it. As the sun climbs higher, the flock descends upon a stand of eucalyptus, claws gripping bark with mechanical precision. The trees seem still, but they are alive with subtle motion. Insects burrow beneath the surface, seeds ripen in woody capsules. A cockatoo tilts its head, dark eye scanning, listening. With sudden force, it tears into the bark, exposing a writhing grub beneath. Protein in a land where scarcity is law. Around it, others work methodically, shredding branches, testing pods, dropping fragments that rain onto the forest floor below. Their feeding is not destruction, it is renewal. The seeds they scatter, the bark they strip, all play a role in shaping the forest's next generation. In this way, parrots become gardeners of the bush, agents of regeneration in a land constantly reborn from ash. But survival here demands more than strength. It demands society. Cockatoos live in intricate social networks, flocks bound by lifelong pair bonds, and complex hierarchies. Mated pairs remain together for decades, sometimes for life, reinforcing their connection through synchronized calls and mutual grooming. Within the flock, information flows constantly, where water was found, where predators lurk, where fresh growth follows fire. In a landscape where resources shift unpredictably, shared knowledge is survival. Young birds learn by watching elders memorizing feeding sites that may not be needed for years until drought returns. Memory becomes a map written not on paper but in instinct and experience. And drought will return. It always does. When the rains fail and rivers shrink into cracked ribbons of mud, the bush transforms into a crucible. Leaves wilt, insects disappear, waterholes become battlegrounds where kangaroos, emus, and livestock converge. For parrots, flight becomes both salvation and gamble. Flocks travel vast distances in search of sustenance, navigating by landmarks etched into their cognitive maps. Their powerful wings carry them across farmland and highways, over expanding cities where glass towers now shimmer where woodland once stood. Human expansion has redrawn the geography of survival. Across eastern Australia, forests have been cleared for agriculture, suburbs, and industry. Ancient nesting trees, hollowed over centuries and essential for breeding, fall to chainsaws. For cockatoos, the loss of a single hollow can mean the loss of generations. These birds do not build nests, they inherit them. A suitable cavity may take more than 100 years to form. Without it, reproduction falters. In some regions, competition for hollows has intensified, forcing parrots into dangerous proximity with urban life. Yet adaptation is woven into their DNA. In cities like Sydney and Brisbane, sulfur-crested cockatoos have become unlikely urban pioneers. They pry open garbage bins with coordinated precision, teaching one another techniques that spread like cultural revolutions through the flock. They perch on power lines, patrol parks, and nest in remnant trees along suburban streets. Their intelligence, once honed to exploit the unpredictability of the wild, now navigates traffic patterns and human routines. But adaptation has limits: collisions with vehicles, exposure to pollutants, and conflict with humans who see them as pests introduce new perils to an already fragile existence. Further inland, beneath the wide skies of the savanna, another figure glides through the heat shimmer. The gala, rose-pink chest blazing against soft gray wings. It is a paradox of elegance and resilience. Galas thrive where others falter, feeding on seeds in open grasslands that stretch toward the horizon. They gather in vast, raucous flocks that twist through the sky, like living confetti. Unlike their forest cousins, galas have benefited in some ways from agriculture, exploiting grain crops and artificial water sources. But abundance can be deceptive. Prolonged droughts intensified by climate change are altering flowering cycles and shrinking food supplies. What was once reliable becomes erratic. Climate change is not an abstract concept here. It is heat that lingers longer each year, fires that burn hotter and more frequently, storms that arrive with cyclonic fury. In 2019 and 2020, unprecedented bushfires scorched millions of hectares, turning forests into blackened skeletons. The sky glowed orange for weeks. For parrots, escape was possible, flight carrying them ahead of flame fronts. But escape does not guarantee survival. When the fire passes, it leaves silence. No seeds, no canopy, no shelter from predators. Recovery depends on the forest's resilience and on time that a warming climate may no longer afford. Yet even in devastation, there is defiance. Weeks after a burn, green shoots pierce the ash. Eucalyptus, epicormic buds burst from charred trunks, painting blackened hillsides with fragile hope. And from somewhere beyond the smoke, cockatoos return. They circle cautiously at first, then land among the ruins, testing branches, probing for the first signs of life. Their presence is a promise. As long as the forest can rise, so will they. In the late afternoon, as the heat begins to soften, a pair of Major Mitchell's cockatoos drifts across the sky, pale pink bodies glowing in golden light, crests tipped with fiery red and yellow. They settle near a nesting hollow high in an old eucalyptus, exchanging low, intimate calls. Inside the tree, hidden from view, a chick waits, vulnerable, blind, utterly dependent. The parents will guard this hollow fiercely, fending off rivals and predators alike. Their investment is immense. Raising a single chick can take months of relentless effort. In a land where survival is uncertain, each new life is a triumph. As dusk descends, the flocks gather once more, silhouettes assembling against a crimson sky. Their calls echo across the woodland, harsh, unmelodic to human ears, yet woven with meaning. They are declarations of territory, of reunion, of endurance. Beneath them, the eucalyptus leaves whisper in the cooling breeze, releasing their sharp medicinal scent into the twilight. This is Australia's living paradox, a continent both brutal and breathtaking, where fire destroys and creates, where drought tests every heartbeat, and where intelligence and adaptability can tip the scales between extinction and survival. The parrots of the eucalyptus are not merely inhabitants of this world. They are its chroniclers, bearing witness to cycles older than humanity itself. But the balance is shifting. As temperatures climb and landscapes fragment, the margin for error narrows. The future of these aerial monarchs depends not only on their remarkable resilience, but on ours on whether we choose to preserve the ancient trees that cradle their young, to mitigate the climate forces reshaping their home, to see in their fierce eyes not nuisance but kinship. For when the cockatoos rise at dawn, crests blazing against the newborn sun, they carry with them a story of survival written in fire and wind. And in their thunderous chorus lies a question echoing across the eucalyptus canopy. Will we allow this wild symphony to endure, or will the sky one day fall silent? Far to the north, where Australia leans toward the equator and the air grows heavy with moisture rising from coral seas, the continent sheds its dusty austerity and becomes something older, darker, and infinitely alive. Here, in the rainforests of Queensland, remnants of Gondwana itself, the world breathes in green, mist coils through the canopy at dawn, draping ancient fig trees and strangler vines in silver veils. Sunlight does not simply fall. It filters, fractures, and dissolves into emerald shadow. The forest floor is a cathedral of roots and decay, where every fallen leaf becomes nourishment and every whisper carries the weight of millennia. And within this layered labyrinth of life, flashes of impossible color ignite the gloom, living jewels moving through the foliage. The parrots of the rainforest do not announce themselves with the raucous dominion of cockatoos. They emerge like secrets revealed in fragments, a crimson wing here, a streak of electric blue there, guardians of a world as fragile as it is eternal. High in the canopy, where fruit ripens in the filtered sun, a shape shifts among the leaves. It is the eclectus parrot, and in this species nature has painted two entirely different masterpieces. The male is a vision of green so vivid he seems sculpted from the forest itself, his plumage merging seamlessly with the foliage, wings tipped with cobalt and scarlet. He is camouflage incarnate, nearly invisible against the chlorophyll sea. But the female, she is something else entirely. Cloaked in royal crimson and deep indigo, she blazes against the green like a living ember. This extreme sexual dimorphism is one of the most dramatic in the avian world, an evolutionary story written in color. In the dim rainforest canopy, where hollows suitable for nesting are rare and fiercely contested, the female remains at the nesting site for months, guarding it with unwavering intensity. Her brilliant red may signal ownership, a warning flare to rivals in the shadows. This hollow is taken. Nesting hollows here are priceless. Formed over centuries as fungi and insects hollow out the heartwood of towering trees, they are fortresses against predators and storms. Without them, life cannot begin. The female eclectus will defend her chosen cavity relentlessly, sometimes fending off other females in aerial clashes that spiral through the treetops. Meanwhile, the male becomes a provider, traversing vast tracts of forest in search of fruit, seeds, blossoms, and nectar. In this intricate dance of roles, survival depends on partnership and precision timing. Rainforests operate on cycles of abundance and scarcity dictated by seasonal rainfall. When figs fruit in synchrony, the canopy erupts in feasting, parrots, cassowaries, bats, and primates converging in chaotic communion. But when fruiting fails, competition sharpens like a blade. The rainforest is a paradox of stability and vulnerability. Though it appears timeless, it survives on a knife's edge of climatic balance. These forests depend on consistent rainfall drawn from ocean currents and atmospheric rivers. A slight shift in temperature patterns can disrupt flowering cycles and fruit production. For parrots, whose diets are highly specialized, even minor fluctuations ripple outward with devastating effect. In recent decades, climate change has begun to rewrite these rhythms. Prolonged heat waves stress trees. Cyclones arrive with greater intensity, tearing through the canopy, uprooting giants that took centuries to rise. What appears as natural disturbance can become catastrophic when frequency outpaces recovery. After a cyclone passes, the rainforest floor becomes a mosaic of broken limbs and shattered trunks. Sunlight floods gaps where shade once reigned. For a moment it seems destruction has won. Yet in this ecosystem, disturbance is also opportunity. Pioneer plants surge upward in the sudden brightness. Flowering vines sprawl across fallen timber, and parrots descend to exploit new feeding niches, cracking open exposed seeds, sampling fresh shoots. Adaptability here is subtle. Not the dramatic migration of desert flocks, but the flexible palate of a species able to shift diets as the forest transforms around it. Among the mid-canopy branches of the Great Dividing Range, another figure moves with measured grace. The Australian king parrot. The male's head and chest burn scarlet against a body of luminous green, as if forged from forest and flame alike. Unlike the eclectus, the sexes share more similar palates, but their behavior reveals equal complexity. King parrots are altitudinal migrants, traveling between lowland rainforests and higher mountain forests as seasons change. In summer, they may retreat to cooler uplands where fruiting trees provide refuge from coastal heat. In winter, they descend once more. This vertical migration is a strategy born of geographic diversity, a way to hedge bets against localized scarcity. But elevation offers no immunity from warming trends. As temperatures rise, suitable climatic zones shift uphill. Species adapted to cooler highland forests may find themselves pushed toward mountaintops, with nowhere left to climb. Habitat fragmentation compounds the threat. Logging and agricultural clearing have carved once continuous rainforest into isolated pockets. Roads slice through corridors that animals once used freely. For parrots that rely on seasonal movement, fragmentation becomes a silent barrier, an invisible fence restricting access to food and nesting sites. On the forest's edge where rainforest meets human settlement, the crimson rosella flares like a living banner. Scarlet plumage edged with blue and black catches the sunlight as it perches along fence lines and orchard trees. Rosellas are among the most adaptable of Australia's parrots, venturing confidently into gardens and farmland. They feed on seeds and fruit, sometimes welcomed for their beauty, sometimes cursed for their appetite. Yet their adaptability does not shield them entirely. Land clearing reduces old-growth trees that provide nesting hollows. Invasive species, from feral cats to aggressive bird competitors, introduce new pressures. Even well-intentioned feeding by humans can disrupt natural foraging behavior and spread disease through artificial congregation. The rainforest at dusk is a symphony of layered sound, frogs calling from hidden streams, insects thrumming in relentless rhythm, leaves rustling with unseen movement. Parrots settle into roosts, their vibrant forms dimming into silhouettes against the fading light. Within tree hollows, chicks huddle, waiting for the return of parents who navigate darkness guided by memory and instinct. The air grows thick with humidity and distant thunder murmurs over the coral sea. Storms are lifeblood here. Without them, the forest withers. Yet climate models predict longer dry spells punctuated by more violent deluges. Such extremes strain both flora and fauna. When drought tightens its grip, fruiting declines and competition intensifies. When torrential rains arrive all at once, soil erodes and young seedlings wash away. The delicate equilibrium, forged over evolutionary time, wavers under the weight of rapid change. Still, resilience pulses through this green cathedral. Rainforests are among Earth's greatest carbon reservoirs, absorbing and storing vast quantities of atmospheric carbon dioxide. In protecting them, we safeguard not only parrots but planetary stability itself. Conservation initiatives across Queensland aim to reconnect fragmented habitats through wildlife corridors, to preserve ancient trees, to regulate logging practices and mitigate climate impact. Indigenous stewardship, practiced for tens of thousands of years, offers knowledge rooted in balance rather than extraction. A reminder that coexistence is not a modern invention, but an ancient one. As dawn breaks once more over the canopy, shafts of golden light pierce the mist. A female eclectus peers from her nesting hollow, crimson feathers igniting in the newborn sun. The male arrives moments later, green body gliding silently through the leaves, bearing fruit in his curved beak. Their exchange is brief but profound. Nourishment passed from one life to another, continuity secured for another fragile season. In the rainforest, survival is rarely loud. It is measured in patience, in partnership, in the slow growth of trees and the faithful return of rain. These parrots are not conquerors of chaos, but custodians of continuity. threads in a tapestry woven long before humanity learned to name the forest. And as chainsaws fall silent and conservation lines are drawn, a choice emerges from the green depths, whether these forests remain vibrant sanctuaries or fade into memory. For if the guardians of the green fall silent, if crimson and emerald no longer flicker through the canopy, the loss will echo far beyond Australia's shores. The rainforest does not ask for dominion. It asks for balance, and in the luminous gaze of its parrots, in the whisper of wings through filtered light, we are reminded that the fate of this ancient green world, and the radiant lives within it, now rests, in part, in our hands. At the center of Australia lies a silence so vast it seems to swallow time itself. The Red Heart, an expanse of desert and spinifex plain stretching beyond the horizon, is a land stripped to its elemental truths. Here, the sun does not simply shine, it dominates. By midday, heat shimmers above the iron-rich earth in wavering veils, and the air trembles as if the world itself were breathing fire. Rain is not seasonal, it is mythical. Months, sometimes years, pass beneath an unbroken sky of merciless blue. Salt lakes harden into blinding mirrors, riverbeds fracture into mosaics of dust. And yet, against all logic, life persists. From the stillness, a sound rises, faint at first, like distant wind stirring dry grass. Then the horizon begins to move. A rolling, twisting cloud materializes above the plains, not of dust, but of wings. Tens of thousands of budgerigars surge across the sky in synchronized motion, emerald bodies flashing gold in the sun, their flight a living storm sweeping across the desert. They move with breathtaking unity, bending and folding through the air, as if guided by a single consciousness. In this land of scarcity, abundance arrives not in permanence, but in pulses, sudden rains that transform barren flats into temporary wetlands. And the budgerigars, nomads of the outback, are masters of chasing these fleeting miracles. Australia's arid interior is a geography of extremes. Temperatures can soar beyond 45 degrees Celsius by day and plunge toward freezing at night. Vegetation grows sparse and low. Hardy shrubs, salt bush, and resilient spinifex grasses adapted to conserve every drop of moisture. For most creatures, survival here demands specialization. For the budgigar, it demands mobility. Unlike their rainforest cousins tied to ancient hollows, budgigars follow the rain. When storms sweep across the interior, they awaken dormant seeds buried in the dust. Within days, green shoots erupt from the earth, carpeting plains in improbable color. Insects hatch. Water collects in shallow basins. It is a fleeting feast, and the budgerigars descend upon it with urgency. Their breeding strategy mirrors the unpredictability of their home. Rather than adhere to a fixed season, budgerigars reproduce opportunistically, triggered by rainfall and food abundance. Nests are established in tree hollows along ephemeral waterways. Eggs laid quickly, chicks raised at astonishing speed. Time is a luxury the desert does not grant. Within weeks, young birds take to the sky, joining flocks that may travel hundreds of kilometers in search of the next storm-born oasis. It is a strategy of risk and reward. Feast or famine, expansion or collapse. Flight is their shield against the desert's dangers. Predators patrol the skies, falcons and kites slicing through thermals with lethal precision. On the ground, feral cats introduced by European settlers stalk waterholes and nesting sites. But in massive flocks, budgerigars become a single shifting organism. When attacked, they ripple outward in dazzling formations, confusing predators in waves of synchronized turns. It is safety in numbers, an evolutionary answer to open landscapes with nowhere to hide. Yet even the nomad faces limits in a warming world. Climate change has intensified drought cycles across central Australia. Rains grow less predictable, sometimes arriving in violent bursts that evaporate as quickly as they form. Prolonged dry periods reduce seed production, leaving flocks to wander farther and longer in search of sustenance. Exhaustion claims the weakest. Water holes shrink to brackish puddles. The desert, once harsh but cyclical, edges toward prolonged desolation. And deeper within this red immensity, where spinifex hummocks cast sharp shadows across cracked clay, another parrot moves like a rumor, almost unseen, almost mythical, the night parrot. For over a century, it was considered extinct, a ghost of colonial journals and faded museum specimens. Then, in 2013, against all expectation, it was rediscovered in the remote outback, a survivor hidden in one of the most unforgiving landscapes on Earth. Stocky and secretive, mottled in greens and browns that mimic the desert's sparse vegetation, the night parrot is evolution's answer to invisibility. It shelters by day within dense spinifex clumps, emerging only under the cover of darkness to feed on seeds. Its call, a soft, haunting whistle, drifts across the plains like an echo from another era. In avoiding daylight, it evades predators and the brutal heat. In stillness, it conserves precious energy, but secrecy is not immunity. The night parrot's rediscovery brought hope and concern. With such a small-known population, it is exquisitely vulnerable. Feral predators pose relentless threats. Cattle grazing can degrade fragile spinifex habitats. And wildfires, once part of a natural mosaic shaped by indigenous land management, now burn hotter and more extensively due to invasive grasses and altered fire regimes. For a bird that depends on dense ground cover, a single uncontrolled blaze can erase critical refuge. For tens of thousands of years, Aboriginal Australians practiced cultural burning, low-intensity fires carefully timed and placed to create a patchwork of habitats at different stages of regrowth. This mosaic supported biodiversity, ensuring that some areas always remained suitable for shelter and feeding. Modern fire suppression and climate shifts have disrupted this balance, allowing fuel loads to accumulate until ignitions become infernos. The desert's ancient rhythms falter under new pressures. As twilight settles over the outback, heat radiates from the earth in fading waves. The sky transforms into a cathedral of stars, unpolluted and infinite. Somewhere in the darkness, a night parrot calls, a sound so rare it feels sacred. Nearby, budgerigars cluster along the edge of a shrinking waterhole, their reflections trembling in the starlight. Survival here is not guaranteed. It is earned daily through movement, memory, and the relentless pursuit of opportunity. The red heart has always demanded resilience, but resilience alone may no longer suffice. Mining operations carve into fragile landscapes. Groundwater extraction lowers water tables that sustain ephemeral wetlands. Climate projections warn of intensifying heat and prolonged aridity. In a place already balanced at the edge of possibility, even small shifts reverberate with amplified consequence. Yet hope persists in partnership. Conservationists collaborate with indigenous rangers to monitor night parrot populations, employing acoustic technology to detect their elusive calls. Protected areas expand. Feral predator control programs take root. Research into sustainable land management seeks to restore mosaic burning practices that once sustained both people and wildlife. These efforts are not mere interventions. They are acknowledgments that the desert is not empty wasteland but living heritage. As dawn approaches, a faint blush of HT spreads across the horizon. Budgerigars rise once more, lifting from the earth in a synchronized surge that transforms scarcity into spectacle. Their wings catch the newborn sun, emerald feathers igniting like sparks against the red soil below. They do not know the language of climate models or policy debates. They know only movement, adaptation, survival. The parrots of Australia, from rainforest guardians to desert nomads, embody the continent's extremes. They are storytellers of fire and flood, drought and regeneration. In their flight patterns are maps of rainfall. In their nesting hollows are chronicles of ancient trees. In their persistence lies a question directed not at the desert nor the forest, but at us. Will the skies above the red heart continue to pulse with green storms of wings? Will the night parrot remain a whisper in the spinifex, or fade once more into silence? The future of Australia's most extraordinary parrots will not be decided by evolution alone. It will be shaped by human choice, by how we manage land, confront climate change, and honor the intricate systems that sustain life in even the harshest corners of Earth. For in the vastness of the outback, beneath a sky ablaze with stars, the truth becomes undeniable. When we protect these survivors of the red heart, we protect something far greater than a species. We safeguard resilience itself, the fierce, improbable will of life to endure against all odds. There is a moment just before sunrise when the world feels undecided. The sky above Australia softens from indigo to ash gray. The desert cools. The rainforest exhales mist. The eucalyptus forests stand motionless, their pale trunks ghost-like in the half-light. In that fragile pause between night and day, the future feels unwritten. Then, from somewhere in the canopy, a cockatoo screams. It is not merely sound. It is inheritance. It is survival passed from one generation to the next. It is memory carved into bone and feather. And today, more than ever before, it is a warning. Across Australia, the rhythms that shaped parrots for millions of years are shifting. The ancient partnership between fire and forest is faltering under intensifying heat. Rain that once arrived in patient cycles now comes in violent bursts, or not at all. Rivers shrink earlier. Drought lingers longer. The mathematics of survival grow harsher. In the eucalyptus woodlands, nesting hollows grow scarce. The trees that cradle cockatoo chicks are often older than modern civilization, some centuries in the making, yet they can fall in minutes to chainsaws or flames. Without these hollows, entire breeding seasons collapse into silence. In the rainforest, rising temperatures creep up slope. Fruit ripens out of sync with migration. Cyclones carve wider scars. Fragmented forests isolate populations that once moved freely through green corridors. The tapestry begins to fray, thread by thread, and in the desert, the pulse of rain becomes erratic. Budgerauger flocks that once swelled into living storms now travel farther between breeding booms. The night parrot, already a phantom, faces a tightening ring of threats: feral predators, invasive grasses, hotter fires. Survival becomes not just improbable but precarious. Yet this is not only a story of decline, because resilience still lives here. In protected reserves across Queensland and New South Wales, corridors are being stitched back together, strips of reforested land reconnecting isolated habitats. Old-growth trees are being identified and shielded, recognized not as timber, but as nurseries of the sky. Indigenous ranger programs are reviving cultural burning practices, restoring mosaic fire patterns that nurture biodiversity instead of consuming it whole. Science, too, is listening. Acoustic monitoring devices, hidden in remote spinifex, record the faint whistles of night parrots beneath starlit skies. Satellite tracking maps the sweeping migrations of desert flocks, revealing ancient routes written in instinct. Climate models forecast the refuges of tomorrow, cooler pockets of land where rainforest species might endure if protected today. But knowledge alone cannot tilt the balance, because the greatest force shaping this story is not drought, not fire, not storm. It is choice. Every cleared woodland, every protected hectare, every policy that reduces emissions or accelerates them, every effort to control invasive predators, every decision to see wildlife as nuisance or as inheritance. The parrots of Australia cannot negotiate treaties. They cannot halt bulldozers or legislate carbon targets. They can only do what evolution has trained them to do: adapt, endure, try again. And they are trying. At the edge of a regrowing forest, weeks after fire has passed, sulfur-crested cockatoos return. They land on blackened branches, probing for life beneath char. Green epicormic shoots push through scorched bark. The forest is not dead. It is beginning again. In the rainforest, a female eclectus peers from her hollow, her crimson feathers glowing against the filtered sun. The male arrives with fruit, precise and faithful. Life continues, fragile but determined. Over the desert, after rare rains have painted the plains green, budgerigars erupt into the sky in numbers that defy despair, a spinning galaxy of wings against red earth. They breed, they feed, they gamble on tomorrow, and somewhere, in the hush of spinifex under moonlight, a night parrot steps cautiously into the open, a species once believed gone forever, still here, still breathing, still resisting extinction. The question is no longer whether parrots can survive Australia's natural extremes. They have done so for millennia. The question is whether they can survive us. If the skies fall silent, if emerald flocks no longer darken desert horizons, if crimson flashes no longer flicker through rainforest canopy, if dawn breaks without the raucous cry of cockatoos, because parrots are more than birds. They are seed dispersers that regenerate forests. They are living threads binding fire, rain, tree, and sky into a single breathing system. To lose them would not simply be to lose beauty. It would be to unravel balance. But silence is not inevitable. Across Australia, communities are choosing differently. Land is being restored. Emissions are being challenged. Young people grow up knowing the names of these birds not from textbooks of extinction, but from skies alive with motion. The future is not fixed. It hovers, like a bird riding a thermal suspended between falling and flight. As the sun finally breaks across the horizon, igniting eucalyptus leaves in silver light, a flock of cockatoos rises once more. Their wings beat against the morning air, crests blazing gold. They climb higher, voices echoing across forest and field. It is a sound both ancient and urgent, a declaration, a plea, a promise. The most amazing parrots of Australia have survived firestorms, ice ages, and epochs of change. Now their fate intertwines with ours. And as they vanish into the widening sky, one truth remains, clear as desert air, sharp as rainforest light. If we choose stewardship over silence, the sky will continue to burn with wings,